You spoke about leveraging the technology in the L&D space. Many companies may not be able to afford it. Some company, they feel that why investing in people, any which way they're living. Like you said, that millennials, the average tenure in any organization is 2 years. Why to invest on the people? The second aspect, maybe, we want trained people, we don't want to train people. So why so much of efforts are required in the learning and development space? So technology, which can be a game changer, which you have successfully deployed in Wipro, which can be replicated in other organizations.
So the right technology is the most appropriate technology for the problem that you are trying to solve. It is not necessarily the most sophisticated technology. When the Americans went to the space, they figured out that their pen is not writing because of no pressure, the ink is getting frozen, and it's not writing. The technologically advanced nation that they are, they decided to invent a pen which can write in the space. And they spent millions of dollars to invent the pen. And it actually wrote in the space. Brilliant invention. Friends, do you know what the Russians did? They used a pencil. So it's not about affordability, it's about what problem that you're trying to solve. If your purpose is to write, do I need to invent a pen which can write, or can I use a pencil? So that's what we'll have to think. So there are technologies which are available. There are very sophisticated technology, there are very low cost technologies. There's technology for everyone today, in today's world. But the question is, we'll have to look at what problem we are trying to address, what skill set that we are trying to develop, what engagement that we're trying to bring in. Do you really need to bring in artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, or can we set up a blog portal where people can exchange their ideas through blogs? That's the question that we'll have to answer.
Thank you. And one more, aspect is, when you look at developmental aspect, I think, and vis-a-vis the operational excellence in HR, employees tends to, go to the HR for operations, issues. But when it comes to training, the training function, they run up to the, employees. So how do you create that kind of pull factor? Like, Veena also said that, yes, I think it is a virtual workplace. So now the bank, they're reaching out to the customers. Okay, but here it is reverse actually. Employee, they are coming to HR for operational issues, and the training L&D function is, following, the employee. So how you can create a pull factor in the L&D space?
Right. So I will use another interesting analogy. I hope you will appreciate it. So all of us have kind of, traveled across different parts of the country and globe, and we have taken a flight to go to different places. And have you ever been seated next to an emergency exit? Many times? Okay. So when you do that, the air hostess comes to you and explains to you how to operate the emergency exit. Please give me an honest answer. How many of us can really operate an emergency exit at the time of the need? 2 or 3 hands go up. But why is it so? The air hostess, with great deal of sincerity and honesty, is explaining to us how to operate the emergency exit. But why we still don't learn it? There is a fundamental principle of learning which goes like this. People will learn only if they want to learn. We cannot make them learn. So they come to HR for the payroll, for the paycheck, because they need it, they want to. But people, unless they want to learn, they will never come. So now the question is how we can make them want to learn. That's the most important thing. That's something that we'll have to think. That's what we have been thinking. And when there are millennials, how can you get them to learn? How can you make them want to learn? I will not answer that question. I will leave it on the table for you to think.
Yeah, thanks. Now, Veena, if you look at banking sector, it is there for wrong reasons in last couple of years now. How is the moral? How it is impacting the employees at large? If you look at managers at a retiring age, obviously whenever any loan is being sanctioned, they are little protective, saying that post-retirement somebody will catch me if anything will go wrong. So in the name of technology deployment, Still, you are not able to give maybe banking sector is not able to give that kind of services when it comes to corporate. But individual, there are different checks and balances. What is the, moral, how you are, what is the role of HR in, boosting the moral of that in such scenario?
And I thought Prakash will ask me easy question. That was what was discussed there. He's asking me the most difficult question. So, banking as an industry is very regulated. Every employee has, and I think it was Srilata who mentioned, compliance is a way of life, code of conduct is a way of life, behavior is a way of life. And probably 15 years back, you could get away with a mistake because it was really a careless mistake, silly mistake, and there was enough evidence around it. But if it was a mistake with an intent, probably 15, 20 years back, it was not a big deal, or at least it didn't. But now, that decision and activity will haunt you. Because with so many laws across how you need to run business in a bank, what are your responsibility as a banker and to the community and to the economy, irrespective of the seniority, I think obviously the senior most is the one who gets questioned, because he or she is the one who's signing the final decision paper. It's not the person who's making the paper. Due diligence is the other aspect of it. All of it, in the long run or even in the current situation, there is no technology in this. You only have audit departments, and you only have data, you only have paperwork, you only have proof. Technology is probably, am I coming out of a system from the finance department or from a risk department? So that is one angle to it. I hope I'm answering your question, and I hope you don't ask me any more difficult questions. Therefore, employees become very, very cautious. Now, their performance is they feel, oh God, I will not take a decision. Senior, junior, senior most. How do I palm off my email, inbox, outbox, if I go, that work is done. So the mindset change is how to palm off a decision-making process. I think that is what I see is the maximum that is happening. From what I have seen probably 15, 20 years back to what I see now is the football that goes on. And the goalpost is changing. That's what I see now.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Mr. Sujay Banerjee, institutional building is a key responsibility of the CXO level in any organization. Some of the insight you can give on the transformation they've done in institutional building, especially on people development, on process improvement, process simplification, or technology deployment, and how you have actually worked with the mindset of the CXO to make sure that the technology well deployed in the HR area.
Okay, quite a detailed question. Since you're talking about institutional building, I'll just take the liberty of sharing with you a life example which has been going on in my professional life for the last 3.5 years. We as an organization were partners of Caterpillar for the last 75 years in this country, but then we evolved as a new company on the 24th of June 2016 after we separated from our previous owners. So while it has a rich legacy of many, many years, we are building a new institution over the last 3.5 years where a lot of transformation has been going on, and there was a blending of talent which existed from the past and the talent which we have acquired, or people like me who have come into the organization from leadership levels even to the person of the last mile. So when my leader of the organization, we sat down together, we took one broad goal for ourselves, and that is we're going to make this organization a great place to work. So how do you do that? It's very easy to say great place to work. How do you do that? So it requires a lot of transformation in the mindset of the organization, that why we need this change. We did a few of interventions. Since you asked my experience, we did something on a large-scale interactive process. Over 1,400 employees touching the last person on the last mile. And we heard them out. We did it over 4 months in the year 2017. And at the end of 2 days of each process, the leadership team is stand in front of the employees and make a commitment that these are your concerns. We give you timelines by which we're going to complete it. the entire leadership team, the chairman, managing director, and the leadership team made that commitment to the employees at each and every LSIP workshop. And then we tracked about 300 odd commitments we had made, and monthly we monitored in an HR council meeting, and we published a dashboard which talked about the progress of each of these commitments we had made. And in 2018, in 1.5 years' time, we've completed 90% of the commitments we had made. So you create a trust, you create a confidence in the leadership. And when you create a trust, a confidence, and a belief in the leadership, in the organization, there is more bonding, there is more faith in the organization, and then you can bring about the change, because then people believe that this change is just not for the sake of change, this change is something which we wanted. And this is how the organization together evolves. And I think from an organization, you create an institution.
Yeah, I think LSIP is a great, tool to get ideas from each and every employee and ensure that the leadership also take the commitment and supporting them. And it is not that idea is only about the top management giving the idea, and every single employee is also involved in this process. Now as a concluding remark, I think one aspect we can discuss is, or you can share your insight is, something called technology for all. Now that in Government of India also looking at power for all, housing for all, education for all was already there. No children left behind in terms of education. So if you talk about technology deployment nature, technology for all, your insight as to what is the role of a HR in ensuring that every single employee is having a superior experience in HR technology, and every people manager also is getting a good insight about the technology aspects, and how role of HR is making sure that every employee is tech savvy and every people manager is people savvy. We'll start from Alan. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I have a bit of a bifurcated view of that, Prakash. When I rode from the airport in my Uber to the hotel, I talked to the driver and I asked him, "Where are you from?" And he said, "Jharkhand." And I said, "How long have you been here in Mumbai?" 1 week. "Where were you in Jharkhand?" "A village." And he was using his Uber and Google Maps and so forth to get me perfectly exactly where I needed to be. And by the way, he stopped to buy something on the way. So he was a clever guy that he could take 2 minutes to get whatever he needed, cigarettes or whatever that was. So that's technology for all, and he's getting a job out of it. But I have to say that in the companies that we work with, if a power system operator or a high voltage transmission engineer doesn't know what they're doing, you can't make it cheap and simple to comply with very high-tech regulations that are imposed by an industry, by the airline industry or by the medical industry and so forth. So I think, there is technology for all. Everyone can use WhatsApp, but if you're flying a plane or running an electrical system for the northern grid in India, it's going to be high-tech and sophisticated.
Yeah, I think really interesting stuff. A Uber driver, he knows that he's ahead of the technology and he is leveraging the technology so that Uber is not able to catch. And in Mumbai language, he must be thinking, Gora ko sandi laga diya, Uber ko chuna laga diya. Because he has found out some jugaad technology and he made sure that, he made sure that he reaches on time as well as he is getting his stop. And this is what is actually the kind of, jugaad technology I talk about is wherein a village, a semi-literate or literate guy is able to canalize things, making sure the small improvement he's making, and with a low cost, he's making a lot of improvements. Actually.
Yeah, that's right. But I don't think he's going to be the guy that's flying my airplane or running the power grid for northern India. So
I think great insight. If a Uber driver or any such guy, semi-literate guy can do it, why HR professionals cannot build a passion and cannot learn, adopt the technology and implement the technology in the workplace, right? Yeah, your insight, Mr. Mahapatra. I'm not calling it Surya because Surya, and Surya. See, in Odia it is Surya. And yeah, please.
So technology for all. I think most organizations believe, for them the definition of all is all employees. But I believe it's beyond that. Today organizations have employees who are regular permanent employees, they also have contract employees, time employees. So when you were talking about technology, and from my perspective, when you're talking about bringing learning to all, I believe it's everybody, not just regular permanent employees. It's all. It's your part-time employees, your contingent workers, your gig workers, your everybody, and even beyond that. They also include your prospective employees, potential employees. The moment you roll out an offer to an employee, to a candidate who is going to become an employee in the next few weeks, what are we doing about that? What are we doing about that employee? Do we have learning solutions available to them? And it's also beyond that. What about future employees? What is our engagement program with the campus, with universities, with educational institutions? Students who may become employees of your organization tomorrow. So in my opinion, technology for all is not just our regular permanent employees, it's all employees in the organization, and candidates who have been offered a job in your organization who are going to become employees in near future, and future potential employees. I think as HR and L&D professionals, leaders will really have to think seriously about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mahapatra. Your comment, please.
So in the banking industry, I think technology is a given to a large extent, at least in the private sector bank and the foreign bank space. Because that is way of operating, number one. So it is a given. In the public sector, I think it's still in the progression stage. I think the urban cities will probably have that. Tier 1, Tier 2 is probably getting there. But if you look at the workforce outside banking industry, any industry, common man, if you look at, I think everybody is pretty much smart, today. Everybody knows what is YouTube. They know what is, at least I don't know what is Snapchat for the largest period of time. They know Netflix, they know which app to download, and everybody can eat food at 3 a.m. calling Swiggy. So as a community, I think we are pretty much there. As an organization and corporates, some of them will have reached that stage because you have that kind of investment of intent and money. Some of them will do it gradually, but you cannot change the world in one shot. Then there is no fun. So it will happen.
Thanks, Veena. Now, Mr. Suja Banerjee.
I think technology for all, taking cue from what Veena said, as a society we are there, but contextually within the organization, we have to be very contextual in what sort of technology we want to apply in the organization in terms of readiness of the organization, both in terms, not in terms of investment, but readiness of the mindset of the people who can embrace the technology. That is very important because at times what we find is the performance management system, a very critical process of an employee's life cycle. We have digitized it. Everything is on the balance scorecard. You fill up your KPIs, you get rated. But then at times we miss the engaging conversation of a appraiser and appraisee. And that's actually a development dialogue which should take place. Therefore, I think once again, it is contextual and technology for all. I agree with it, but then with a caveat that we should not overdo it.
Yeah, please.
I think I just have one input here. I think the biggest setback we all have to be ready is there is no privacy left anymore. There is no privacy left. I mean, when I look at YouTube, the kind of songs I hear, I suddenly see all the type of songs, the themes and trends. Or if I've gone an Uber somewhere, suddenly everybody knows where I'm going next, or at least they'll predict where I'm going next. So somewhere I have traded off accuracy and speed for privacy. And the extra time that I have, I'm again looking at something else in the mobile.
Thank you. Now the house is open. You can ask questions to any of the panel member. Please tell your name, the organization, and the panelist you want to ask.
Okay, I just wanted to add, I think, somewhere this thought came to my mind and I didn't hear it from the panel. So, you could, I mean, the question is to everybody, I think, in the panel. You know, stitching it together from the diversity panel that we had, inclusion and diversity and technology. And when it comes to technology for all, I think that has to be also given a thought, that our technology, whatever we are using, is for all, including especially examples that I have seen in our organization. While technology is there, it might not be conducive for use to somebody with visual impairment. So I think when we say technology for all, that also has to be thought about. So I just thought that, you know, I'll add that.
Yeah. Jaideep.
This is not a question. This is not a question, but sort of a prism of thought, just to set the narrative going. You know, we are in Bengal, you know, and I often heard when technology is ringing on our doorsteps, and I will interpret you in English, Dr. Allen, for you. They began DHA bake, KDNHA bake. And this is exactly what science has done. Technology has given us a lot of apps, but has taken out the emotions. A galaxy of panel, and I would love to hear your insights and narratives on what is this changing divide of emotions that we are getting into to this via media of technology. When I can be as little bit brassy and tasty here. To say a woman, I love you, now people are sending apps with a love sign. But I think I still saying a woman, I love you is more passionate than sending a love sign. Your insights on that?
So, especially to Alan and Veena and Sujay, as well as Suryo. So, how do we ensure that we get connected to people, even though there is a lot of technology which is highly connected but made us disconnect? What is the role of HR leaders can play in this scenario?
So I'll just start, and I think all of us can jump in. I think it is intent, simple. You have to build, and that doesn't come by HR leaders inculcating in anybody. It has to be within all of us. When there is intent, there's going to be action, and there will be reach, and there is a behavior. So I think that's what I would actually say. And just to further add, you know, we talk about the lady out there, she said about the previous session on diversity, inclusion, and technology, and this is where your example came to my mind, where you said to many people in your campus selection that I have enough app in my laptop and mobile to do the job, but you couldn't get it because there was never an intent in place to begin with, and there was not an energy to put in place to find a solution. If you're wanting to find a solution, I think everybody can find one.
Yeah, yeah, Ellen.
I'd like to also mention another dimension of inclusion, that you have an employee base that have skills which may be old. They brought them in from the university or college, and the world is changing around us. It's around all of us. It's around our companies. And so our employees are faced with the need to consider to acquire new skills. Some employees are going to say, I want to really push the envelope and get new skills. Some will say, I just want to do the old stuff that I did. And to be included with some of the systems that are going to come into your companies, whether you like it or not, you need to have a program to upskill, reskill, and cross-skill staff and to engage them so that they can make choices about where they're going with their careers. Otherwise, the technology is coming, whether we like it or not. So that a form of inclusion is enabling, very much along the lines of Surya's discussion, it's enabling employees to make choices about upskilling, reskilling.
Taking a cue from what Joydeep and both Asif said, they're correlated. And that's, Joydeep, I'm one of those firm believers that, as I said, we are losing touch with human beings. And I think as HR leaders, it's one of our primary duties or responsibilities is to keep the organization's soul alive. And therefore, it's very, very important. The spirit and soul of the organization lies with human beings and not with technology. Technology is an enabler to support the processes to make the employee experience better. But then we have a responsibility, or we have an ownership to our employees and accountability to our employees to not to make them feel as just a staff code number. That's very, very important. Because I think we are getting impersonal, our conversations are not there. People are writing mails from one room to the next room. They're not even going across and sorting out an issue. And we are asking the whereabouts of individuals, whether he or if she is ill or he is ill, by a WhatsApp message. When WhatsApp was not there, we picked up the phone and figured out that how he or she is keeping. We've just forgotten doing that. And that is impacting our society also. We are doing it to our relatives, we're doing it to our near and dear ones, and the organization is only a microcosm of the larger society. So at least if it's happening in the society, we as HR leaders should take the accountability and let that same disease not happen in the organizations. Otherwise, we're going to lose the soul and spirit of the human beings who are the part of the organization, who create the organization.
Very good. I think so. Yeah, anyway.
Hi, this is Rituparna from Wipro. Okay, so through the day, we've spoken a lot about passion, about execution excellence, about intent, about inclusion, and all of that put together. I think as HR professionals and practitioners, we are the custodians of culture. Even when you talk about passion, it's actually woven in the fabric of the organization. It's not really a question, but a thought on the table. What do you as a panel feel about technology as an enabler of culture?
What is culture basically? It's basically, it's a combination of values, it's a combination of ethos, how people think, behave within the organization. That together creates a culture. Technology can enable processes. People have to imbibe the technology. So technology becomes basically a facilitator for creating a new culture. You evolve from one culture to the other. So in the past, it was basically a culture where it was pen and paper, where people found more comfortable. Now, technology is enabling a new way of handling processes. So there's a cultural evolution or a cultural migration which is taking place. So therefore, our job as HR leaders or HR professionals is basically to ensure that using the technology, create a culture where the employee experience is that he or she feels engaged with the organization. So don't use technology as a replacement. Use technology to create a new culture which makes decision-making speedier, decision-making more objective, decision-making more accurate, so that there is more transparency, more objectivity, more confidence in the decision-making. That's one part of the culture. So therefore, and then you create virtual platforms where people get to learn, where there's more of sharing of information. So you create different subsets of culture within the larger culture using technology. That's my take on it.
See, many corporates, they have these values and leadership values that a company should follow. Some will be accountability, responsibility. That's the DNA of an organization. So look at the Tatas and the Godrejas of the world. They've been there for ages together. It's not that they don't have technology. They have technology and they have a huge value system. But they beautifully blend. I think the way corporate should look at, and you always have a lot of nowadays company, fintech. They pride in themselves that we are a fintech company. So for them, the culture is technology. The latest app or platform you have, the smarter you are. So that's the culture. It all depends what is it that they would like to put it as an organization. The best way of integrating both your intent, culture, and technology is probably somewhere capture it in as simple as your smart objectives. How are you going to measure intent? How are you going to measure accountability? How are you going to measure behavior? Some simple, not 10 pages, not 10 points, 1 or 2, and with live example and 360 feedback. So that could be one of the consideration.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. It has been a great panel. Ellen, Surya Prakash, Veena, and Sujaya. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, again, the time for celebration. I would request Mr. Panda to hand over the mementos. To start with Dr. Ellen. Mr. Panda to Dr. Ellen. Mr. Panda to Mr. Mahapatra. Mr. Panda to Ms. Ayar. Mr. Panda to Mr. Banerjee. May I now request Mr. Rahul Bose to come up on the stage for his closing remarks. No, I will make you. So before the closing remarks, I would request Mr. Bose to hand over Mr. Panda's memento to him. Thank you, Mr. Bose.
Thank you so much, eminent panelists. I don't think there are too many people for the closing address. As you know, it's a Friday afternoon. The World Cup is in full swing. So it's a weekend coming. People are in a mood to celebrate. I'll just keep it brief, but I thought it would be justice to sort of give a rundown of the day. As you know, we had started the morning with the inspiration of Hemant Kanoria, and in absence of Mr. Jha, Chairman, Managing Director, Coal India, we had Mr. M.K. Singh and Shomeshda setting the stage, and Shubhadeep for a very spirited one-day international, which is known as the third People Management Conclave. So we had a good, very opening session, and then I saw 3 movies today, really. I mean, if I were to visualize the day, the first part I saw Ben-Hur. In 1959, Stephen Boyd and Charlton Heston. So I saw a lot of valor when Anand Pillai spoke about Bruno, ooh, ooh, and KKD. I'll not mention the last part, that Karke Dikhao brother-in-law or Karke Dikhao sire. So he was, he has great oratorial skills. He shook the whole stage by his dominance. I saw a lot of passion and his slides. Then we had Paul, who was very grounded and very visual appeal, with a mountain splattered with color. And he reiterated the importance of being grounded as well as being strategic at the top, not to be too operational. Tried to blend, great sort of presentation. And he mentioned about Kaizen and Jugaad. Tried to bridge Japan and ducked difficult questions when asked about India. So I found that very appealing. And next was Rajiv Narang, who spoke about innovation and how with a 2.0 mindset you can never aspire to achieve a 5.0 HR. Following which we had Suresh Dutt Tiwari, the company which I worked for, Tata Iron Steel, Vice President HRM Tata Steel. He spoke about culture and how culture drives leaders, how culture drives execution. So that that presentation was most complete in a way because somewhere it sort of encased the whole learning in the morning. So again, I saw visions of Ben-Hur. I saw great leaders of great gallantry, of passion, very male-dominated, 50 plus average age, a very male. I saw some pictures, after which thankfully we had lunch because the world couldn't take any more. So there was lunch in between as a refresher. At around 2:30 we again reconvened and we had a very soft space, if I may say. And I saw a movie called Ghore Baire, where I saw the last scene where Charulata, sorry, I stand corrected, where Bhupati, the protagonist, Shailen Mukherjee, comes very close to Madhavi, Mukherjee, the heroine Charulata, but the hands don't touch. Now, in the movie, there was an illicit love relation with Amol, or I'm not getting into that part, but I saw diversity there, inclusion yet to be there. And it would be, I can't describe, but I'll just share a few thoughts. Asif Iqbal on crossing boundaries and challenging limits. And I really was inspired, Asif, with your PwC stories and the stories before that as an IIM grad, of your travail, of your challenges. We had Ajanta, who said diversity in a small town. In a big city, people understand who is a L, who is a G, who's a B, who's a T. In Jindal or wherever you were, how will people understand where there's no space for people or ladies to, let down? So I was very touched, and the emblazoning moment was the dice, the power of the dice by Shonali Bhattacharya, who's from automation and from business. She said that if you have to win the game, you need a 5 and a 1, and the 1 comes colored. So how can you, like Ma Sharoda used to say, that is any of my children inferior, though I know all children are not same. One would be a dacoit, one would be a saint. But I can never say that somebody is lesser or somebody is greater. I found a very strong presentation. Again, to call out on that second half, there was no slides. There were more ladies. So it was a very, very pleasant session chaired by Rituparna. And of course, a lot of kudos, but we don't normally thank our own beings. So Joydeep, again, for the first part, you handle it so well. And finally, coming on to Srila Dasgupta, who spoke of unconscious bias. So it was a great session and very different for optics. I could sense a sense of calm and people riveted in that 1.5 hours with a very polite and a very dignified audience. So which was a new high in this Bengal Chamber Commerce, the soft space. And I noted this movie, Charulata, where we have come close, but we have not really locked. And finally, we come to the last and the best, where we came into technology after the break, and I saw a movie called Endhiran, or Robo, by Rajnikant and Aishwarya Rai. So there was this robo who wanted to make love to a very beautiful world beauty queen, Aishwarya Rai, but his body was trapped in a robo. So the lessons which we heard from Veena Iyer, Veena from Bombay spoke about a Viran bank. So if I were to do a little bit of alliteration, so that was about Veena. Alan earlier had come to Bengal Chamber of Commerce at Dalhousie Square and had spoken the difference between digitization and digitalization, if I recall, in January. And today he spoke about a virtual power plant and was heavy metal. You are formidable, sir, and we like you for it. Never dilute, never compromise, never play up to the gallery. We like this, and thank you, Pratima, for being the cheerleader. Sujoy, again, he spoke of a balance between technology and touch, and I learned a new term, TLC. I thought it was travel and living, but today I had touch. But it was touch, love, comfort. Surya Kumaro Mahapatra, apon karo namo, ar kichu betha ache, kichu kotha. So he's a loving person, and I can understand that he doesn't like to be called Surya. So Surya, 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 Surya. We'll say it as many times, like in a Hindi or a Bengali movie, that echo. So, so many times changing work style, millennials, he didn't use any slide, making most use of time, and he spoke of, how the rapid world, and in this hyper world, how people don't waste a minute. And finally, on to Alan Sujoy, Veena, banking experience, a brave new world. You are very terse, but the little that you speak, like Modi says, minimum government, maximum governance. So it hits hard. And I think it was, as I saw the movie Endiran. Now, I'll be overstaying my presence. So in a one-day international, there were 20 speakers today. Can you imagine, in 6 hours, you had 20 speakers? More than an India-Pakistan match or an India-Australia match in the final. And who was the winner? The Bengal Chamber of Commerce. Can we give one big round of applause to Shomesh Dasgupta and the Bengal Chamber of Commerce? Thank you so much. All yours.
Thank you, everybody. Here we close the conclave for today. And now you can do your network and enjoy the evening. Thank you.